Canon's going to be announcing the much anticipated Canon EOS R5 Mark II in the second quarter of 2023. But what's it going to cost in US dollars, British pounds, euros, or even the Canadian dollar? Details coming up, but first I encourage you to subscribe and choose all notifications so that way you can stay up to date on all the latest camera gear, news, and rumors. Canon just announced the R6 Mark II a month ago, and it's now shipping for a price of $24.99. That's the same price as the R6 Mark I when it was announced back in July of 2020 for $24.99. So smart money, and you might be thinking the same yourself. Well, won't the R5 Mark II also cost the same as the R5 Mark I when it was released for $38.99 also back in July? Well, it really depends on where you live. Well, if you live in the United States, I certainly think a price range of $38.99 to $39.99 makes sense. $38.99 is the same price as the R5 Mark I when it was announced back in July of 2020. And that aligns with, well, Canon's pricing strategy for the R6 Mark II. But I also think there's room for Canon to increase the price just a little bit to $39.99. Now, based on the current leaked specifications we saw from Canon rumors back on November the 25th, I don't really see any need to push the price past $39.99 to $4,099 or $41.99. For that to happen, we'd have to see a backside illuminated stack sensor, not the BSI sensor that we're getting in the R5 Mark II. Again, if the rumored specifications are correct, plus we have the data point of the R5 Mark II, so I think if you're living in the United States, you can pretty well tune off the video at this point. We're looking at a price of between $38.99 and $39.99. But why didn't Canon raise the price of the R6 Mark II? And why is it unlikely that we'll see much of a price increase of the R5 Mark II? Well, the answer has to do with foreign exchange rates. Let's first of all explain why the R6 Mark II didn't get a price increase, at least in the United States. If you live in Canada, the price went up. If you live in the UK, the price went up. If you lived in continental Europe, the price went up, and many other parts of the world as well. So why is that? Well, if we take a look at the price of the US dollar back in 2020, and actually we're going to go back to January the 31st, 2020, right around the time when Canon was probably finalizing the price of the R5. And at that point, $1 US would buy you 108 yen. Today, that same US dollar will now buy you 136 yen. And that's an increase of, well, 26%. And that's a huge increase. So a 26% increase in the price of the US dollar is the reason why the R6 Mark II hasn't gone up in price, and which is why, if the dollar holds its current 26% increase, we don't expect a price increase on the R5 Mark II. So what about the euro? Well, back in 2020, €1 would buy you about 120 yen. Today, well, it will buy you about 143 yen. And that's about, what, 20% increase over 2020? And the British pound has done almost as well, up 17%. So back in 2020, £1 would buy you 143 yen, whereas today, 176 yen. Again, that's just under 17%. And the Canadian dollar has also gone up. Back in 2020, it was worth 100, no, not 100, it was worth 88 yen, and today it's worth 100 yen. And that's an increase of 23%, second only to the US dollar at 26%. So that's good news, right? We shouldn't see much of a price increase in Canada, in continental Europe, the UK, Australia, or many other countries, correct? Well, it's good news. It's good news that our currency has increased against the Japanese yen. So we're not going to see price increases that significant. But keep in mind, a lot of products in the world, when they're made by international companies such as Canon, they're pegged against the US dollar, the international reserve currency. So we need to look at our currencies relative to the US dollar. So once again, let's go back to January the 31st, 2020, looking at the US dollar, only this time comparing it against the euro. And back then we could see that $1 US would buy approximately 90.13 European cents. Today, it'll buy approximately 95.2 European cents. And that's an increase over the euro of about 5.6%. So looking at the price of the Canon EOS R5 Mark I back in July 2020, we were looking at euros, it was around 4,500 euros. So a 5.6% increase in price would take us to around $46.99 to $47.49. For the British pound back in 2020, $1 US would buy you about 0.7175 British pennies. And today, it'll buy you 0.8190. And that's an increase or appreciation of the US dollar by 8.2%. So looking back to July 2020, the price of the R5 sold for 41.99 British pounds. An increase of around 7 to 10% would put the price of the Canon EOS R5 Mark II at between $44.99 and $45.49. And now let's take a look at the Canadian dollar. In January 31st, 2020, the Canadian dollar was worth $1.32 US. Well, now $1 US will buy you $1.3480, an increase of 2.6%. The Canon EOS R5 today can be bought for $52.99, the same price as in July of 2020. So increasing by 2.6%, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a price of between $53.99 and $54.99. But now let's take a look at Japan, and we've already seen a price increase in Japan. When the R5 Mark I was released, it sold for 460,000 yen. Yes, that is a big price difference. And generally, we're looking at a 100-to-1 ratio of the US dollar to the Japanese yen. Historically, 460,000 yen. Then they increased it to 520,000 yen. And based on the performance of the yen to the US dollar this year, I wouldn't be surprised if the R5 Mark II can go as high as 580,000 yen. And that's a huge price increase. Huge. Wow, I couldn't imagine the price. If the price of the R5 Mark II in Canadian dollars went up by some 25%, I'm not sure if I'd be willing to purchase it. That's a pretty hefty price increase. So to sum up, the price of the Canon EOS R5 can be broken down this way. In terms of Japanese yen, we can see a price anywhere up to 580,000 yen. US dollars, $38.99 to $39.99. Canadian dollars, well, between $52.99 to $54.99. And in British pounds, we can expect it to go from $44.99 to $45.99, or in euros, $46.99 to $47.49. I know what you're thinking. I've oversimplified things a bit. And yes, I have. If I went into details about the cost of goods sold, the price of copper, gold, other materials, base metals, precious metals that go into the price of making chips and other components that go into cameras being sourced from around the world in different currencies, well, you would have tuned out within the first 2 minutes. I aim to give you a Class A estimate at a price of what you can expect to pay for the Canon EOS R5 Mark II. And if I didn't include your currency, well, you can take a look at your currency's price back in, well, January the 31st of 2020 and what it is today against the US dollar, if it's gone up in price or down in price, and then you can come up with your own price estimate of what the R5 Mark II might cost in your region. Originally, I predicted the price of the Canon EOS R5 Mark II between $38.99 and $41.99, but that was before we had any leaked specifications on the R5 Mark II, and we got those back on November the 25th by Canon rumors, placing them as a CR2, meaning it came from a known source. And we didn't get a backside illuminated stack sensor. It is supposed to be backside illuminated, but a backside illuminated stack sensor would be a good reason to push the price past $4,000 to $4,099 or $41.99. And then once we got the price of the R6 Mark II, and we could see it was the exact same price of the R6 Mark I in US dollars, and then we saw what that price increase looked like in euros, in British pounds, Canadian dollars, Australian dollars, New Zealand dollars, that really gives you a really good price point for what the R5 Mark II is going to be because, well, the R6 and the R5 are, well, they're separated by only $1,400. And that's going to be a much better data point than working off the R10 or the R7, trying to figure out what Canon might do in terms of pricing because, but while we got the R7 and the R10 and their recently announced cameras, there's no Mark I. So there's nothing to base it off against, whereas the R6 Mark II gives us a solid base to predict the price. And I'm so confident in these prices that if I get it wrong by more than 5%, I'll go ahead and eat my hair. But that being said, the prices that I've given you here are at the high end of what I expect it's going to be. Things can happen between now and the announcement, and even the announcement could get pushed, and currencies could appreciate or depreciate, or something could happen in the world that causes one currency to really increase over the other or decrease over others, and depending on where they are in the supply chain, well, that could have an impact on price. But barring any major, well, extraordinary item, I'm pretty confident in these prices as the announcement is supposed to be, well, less than 6 months away. And if you want to pre-order the Canon EOS R5, if you want to purchase the camera, I've already got links to the R5 Mark II down below. If you click on it though, you won't see a price for the R5 Mark II because, well, obviously it hasn't been announced by Canon, but what I do have is I have a page to B&H which shows you all my recommended gear for the R5 Mark II, and as soon as that link is live, that page will update where you can pre-order and purchase the Canon EOS R5 Mark II. You won't have to pay any extra. You're going to pay the same price as anybody else. The only benefit I get is, well, I get about 2% back, which goes towards, well, helping this channel grow because I'm going to be purchasing the R5 Mark II. I'll be purchasing the R1. I was going to say the R1 Mark II, but we don't have the R1 Mark II. I know the R3 is kind of standing in as a substitute teacher when it comes to the R1, but I'm really looking forward to the R1 being the true master of everything, although the R5 Mark II does a pretty good job as a stand-in. And if you want to stay up to date on the latest news and rumors regarding the Canon EOS R5 Mark II, the R1, well, I cover all the major brands, all the major camera models, all the major news and rumors. So go ahead and click the subscribe button, followed by choosing all notifications. So that way, as soon as I publish a new video like this one here, you'll get notified by YouTube. That way you can stay up to date on all the latest camera news and rumors. And if time is money for you, well, I save you scrubbing all the latest Twitter feeds, RSS feeds, your favorite websites, YouTube channels, print magazines. You see, I cover all the major camera brands, all the major models, all the major news and rumors, and I even do some reviews. So please go ahead and choose or click subscribe, followed by choosing or clicking all notifications. I don't know why I'm losing my words all of a sudden. Please go ahead and click the subscribe button, followed by choosing all notifications. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.